that I will call moral complexity. Think of a case where you're not the bad actor, but you do something to help him out. Moral philosophers call this the problem of cooperation with evil. Let me describe two wrinkles to illustrate how complex it can be. The first one is about your intentions in cooperating with a bad actor. Suppose you intentionally help the bad actor to do a wrongful act. In this case, imagine that you're driving a getaway car for a bank robber. You share the intention of the bank robber and you act wrongly. It's different if you're forced at gunpoint to cooperate. That's a matter of your intentions. But sometimes we cooperate with bad actors in effecting a wrongful act, but we don't share in their intentions. Here, our acts have the effect of helping a wrongdoer, and we call this material cooperation in the language of theological moral philosophers. Imagine that I'm a bank clerk, or imagine that I'm a sales clerk at Cabela's. You know what Cabela's is? Any shooters in the... Not very many. Cabela's sells guns and other gun kind of equipment. Imagine I'm the sales clerk at Cabela's and I sell a gun to a robber, imagining that he's a hunter. Material cooperation of this kind is sometimes wrong and sometimes not, and we judge this by a kind of moral balancing test, as the lawyers would say. We ask, for example, how important is it that you, the sales clerk, do your act? And how serious is the bad act that you facilitate, the bank robber? It might be a murderer, it might just be a shooter, poacher. How proximate is the causal connection between your act and his? I'm selling him a gun, which he might use for self-defense or for shooting pheasants or for robbing a bank. Could the robber get the gun somewhere else? Do you cause scandal by selling the gun? That is to say, do you lead people to believe that you approve of the use that it's being put to? If you're thinking, this sounds like a lot to keep in mind, you're right, and that's my point. Some moral cases are complex, and all the aspects of them have to be carefully weighed out, since there are serious issues of right and wrong at play in bank robbery and other crimes. Let me give you a couple of specific examples. Here is one that happened last year. We've just seen the confirmation hearings of Brett Kavanaugh. The person who was the number 2 person in line was a woman named Amy Barrett. She's a judge now on the Second Circuit. I don't know if you were paying attention last year to her confirmation hearings, but they focused on this issue of moral complexity. When Ms. Barrett, Judge Barrett, I should say now, was a law student, she was a student of mine, and she and I wrote an article about capital punishment. Actually, I wrote it, and she was my research assistant, but she did such a good job. She's much smarter than I am. But I said, you should put your name on this, Amy. She regretted it. For the last 40 years, the Catholic Church has taught with increasing clarity that the death penalty is wrong. In fact, in August of this year, Pope Francis amended the Catechism of the Catholic Church to say that it is inadmissible under any circumstances. So suppose you're a Catholic judge, like Judge Barrett now is, who listens to what the Church teaches, as she does. What should you do if you're assigned a capital case? In federal law, the drug kingpin law, for example, provides the death penalty for any number of offenses. When she was testifying in her Senate hearing, Senators Feinstein and Durbin and Hirono criticized her for saying that she subscribed to the Church's teaching and couldn't impose the death penalty. I trust the irony of this is not lost on you, left-wing Democrats criticizing a woman candidate offered by Republicans for saying she opposed the death penalty. They obviously hadn't read the article very carefully, because what she said was that as a Catholic who believed what the Church taught, she couldn't impose the death penalty, but the solution for this was for her to recuse herself, not to decide and twist the law. Anyway, the interesting thing was how complex the question turned out to be. When we started writing the article, we both thought, well, this will be interesting. You know, we'll say that all of the 25% of federal and state judges who are Catholic ought to just sit down on these death penalty cases, and the death penalty would quickly become... turned out it wasn't so easy. Imagine, first of all, here's the easiest case. You're a trial judge sitting without a jury in a case where the prosecutor asks for the death penalty. In that case, if you decide to impose the death penalty, you yourself order the Federal Bureau of Prisons to carry out the life or death, the death sentence. So in that case, you intentionally order the death of the prisoner whom you